I watched her slide, pet custody, across the table like it was a sofa or a toaster, and that's when I realized she didn't miss me, she wanted leverage. Hey friends, please subscribe and turn on notifications, like this video, and leave a comment with your impressions. This will be a great help. Thank you. We never tire of reminding you. It's all thanks to you. My name is Daniel. I'm 34 and I live in Raleigh, North Carolina. I work as a project coordinator for a construction supply company. Nothing glamorous but steady, and it has taught me something I didn't appreciate when I was younger. When things get messy, you don't win by getting louder. You win by staying organized. For almost 6 years, I was married to a woman named Alyssa. We weren't a perfect couple, but we were functional. We had jobs, we had routines, we had a clean apartment and matching towels and a Sunday grocery list. We had the kind of life that looks stable from the outside. And then we got a dog. Her name is Penny. Penny is a golden retriever mix, the kind of dog who greets everyone like she hasn't seen them in 10 years. She doesn't bark much. She leans into you with her whole body when she wants attention. She has this habit of bringing her favorite squeaky toy to the door when someone knocks, like she's offering a gift to prove we're friendly. We adopted her from a local rescue when she was about a year old. The shelter described her as gentle social needs structure. I read that line and laughed because it sounded like a job posting, but it was accurate. Penny thrived on routine. She wanted the same walking path, the same feeding schedule, the same bedtime spot at the foot of our bed. I was the one who suggested adoption. Alyssa agreed quickly. She liked the idea of being dog parents. She liked the pictures. She liked the identity. She loved telling people we rescued her. But from day one, the actual work landed mostly on me. I did the morning walks because my schedule was earlier. I handled vet visits because I'm the one who remembered dates. I set up training classes because Penny pulled on the leash and I didn't want her to get hurt or get blamed. I paid for the first round of vaccines, the microchip, the city registration, the crate, the leash, the decent food that didn't turn her stomach. Alyssa would do the fun parts. She'd take pictures. She'd buy cute bandanas. She'd cuddle Penny on the couch and post it with captions like "my whole heart." I didn't mind at first. In a marriage, you don't keep score over every small thing. You assume it evens out over time. Except with Penny, it didn't. When Penny woke up at 2 a.m. with diarrhea after we tried a new treat, it was me cleaning the carpet. When Penny got an ear infection, it was me at the vet at lunch. When Penny needed to be walked in a storm, it was me in a rain jacket with a baggie in my pocket. Alyssa would say, "Ah, poor baby," and then roll over and go back to sleep. It wasn't cruelty, it was distance. Like Penny was a shared project Alyssa enjoyed when it was convenient. Still, Penny bonded with both of us. She was affectionate with Alyssa, but she followed me. If I stood up, she stood up. If I went into another room, she moved with me. When I traveled for work, Alyssa would text me pictures of Penny looking sad at the door with, "She misses you." Looking back, I think Penny wasn't just my dog. She was my emotional truth meter. She sensed who was present and who was performing. Our marriage started cracking around year 5. It wasn't a single betrayal, it was a slow drift. Alyssa started staying later at work. She was too tired for date night. She was always on her phone, smiling at messages she didn't share. When I asked how she was doing, she'd say, "Fine," with a tone that meant, "Don't ask again." I tried the normal things. I suggested counseling. I suggested weekends away. I suggested we stop living like roommates. Alyssa agreed to exactly one counseling session. She sat there with her arms crossed, answered in short sentences, and later told me it felt like a waste of time. Then she stopped going. 3 months after that, she asked for a divorce. Not in a screaming fight, not with tears, more like she was reading out a decision she'd already signed in her head. She said, "I think we both know this isn't working." I didn't beg, I didn't threat, I didn't try to talk her into loving me. That kind of love can't be negotiated. I asked the only questions that mattered. What does this look like? Who's moving out? How do we split things? Alyssa said she wanted the apartment because it was closer to her job. She said she wanted the nicer car because it was newer. She said she wanted half the savings because that's how it works. And then she said, casually, like it was a line item, "And we'll do shared custody of Penny." I looked at her and honestly thought she was joking. Not because I wanted to hurt her feelings, because the words didn't match reality. Shared custody works when two people can cooperate and communicate. It works when you both have a stable environment for the pet. It works when the pet can handle transitions without stress. Penny was a routine dog. Penny got anxious in new places. Penny refused food when she was unsettled. Penny had already started pacing at night because the energy in our apartment was tense. And Alyssa, my wife of 6 years, had never once taken Penny to the vet alone. So I asked, "What do you mean shared custody?" Alyssa shrugged, week on, week off, like everyone does. I said, "Penny isn't a suitcase." Alyssa's eyes narrowed. She's my dog too. I didn't argue that sentence in the moment. Arguing it would have turned into a fight, and fighting would have helped Alyssa paint me as emotional and irrational. Instead, I said, "Let's talk about it later. We need to get the divorce process started first." Alyssa agreed. She seemed pleased, like she'd already won a concession. That night, I took Penny for a long walk. The air was cold, and my hands were numb, but Penny didn't care. She trotted along like the world was still safe as long as I was holding the leash. I told myself this will be the easiest part. Penny will obviously stay with me. Alyssa will see that. I was wrong. The divorce process started like most. Paperwork, phone calls, lawyers, the boring grind of turning a marriage into a spreadsheet. We weren't rich, we didn't have kids. That should have made it simpler. But Alyssa made it complicated in one specific way. Penny. At first, she didn't bring Penny up much. She'd focus on the apartment and the accounts, and Penny would come up at the end like a reminder, and we'll do shared custody. Every time, I'd respond the same way. Let's handle Penny in a way that's best for Penny. Alyssa would respond, what's best is I get time too. I started documenting everything, not because I wanted to win, but because I could feel something coming. I pulled bank statements showing vet payments from my account. I pulled receipts for food, training, grooming, boarding. I pulled the microchip registration. Penny's chip was registered in my name because I filled out the paperwork at the shelter. I pulled the city registration. I pulled emails from the rescue confirming adoption under both names but listing my contact info as primary. I also pulled texts. Not private spying, just normal texts between spouses that you don't think will matter until they do. Texts where Alyssa said, "Can you walk Penny? I'm exhausted." Texts where she said, "Can you take her to the vet? I have a meeting." Texts where she said, "I'm going out after work. Make sure Penny gets fed." It built a pattern. Then Alyssa did the thing that made my blood run cold. One Friday afternoon, I came home and Penny wasn't there. Her leash was gone from the hook, her harness was missing, her bed was still there, but her favorite toy was missing too. I checked the balcony, I checked the bedroom, I checked the bathroom. Penny wasn't hiding. Penny doesn't hide. I called Alyssa. She answered on the second ring, cheerful, "Hey." I asked calm but direct, "Where's Penny?" Alyssa said, "With me." I said, "You didn't tell me you were taking her." She replied like it was obvious, "It's my weekend." I stood in my kitchen with my phone pressed to my ear and forced my voice to stay level. "We don't have a custody agreement." Alyssa laughed softly. "We don't need one, she's my dog too." I said, "Bring her back tonight." Alyssa said no. I paused. "Alyssa, I'm not fighting. I'm telling you this is not okay. Bring her back." She said, "You're trying to control me." That's when I realized this wasn't about loving Penny. It was about leverage. If Alyssa could take Penny without asking, she could make me chase. She could pull me into arguments. She could keep a string tied to my life even after she walked away. I didn't argue on the phone. I didn't threaten. I said one sentence. "Okay, I'm going to handle this through the process." Alyssa snorted, "Good luck." She hung up. That night I didn't sleep, not because I was sobbing, because I was picturing Penny in a strange apartment, confused, pacing, looking for her routine. At 7:15 a.m. the next morning, I called my lawyer. My lawyer wasn't fancy. He was a practical guy who'd handled 1,000 divorces. I explained what happened. I told him about the microchip, the vet records, the payments. He said something I'll never forget. In North Carolina, pets are generally treated as personal property in divorce. That sounds cold, but it's useful. If she removed the dog without consent and the dog is registered in your name, you have options. I asked, what are my options? He said, we can request a temporary order for exclusive possession of the dog pending the divorce, and we can ask the court to prevent either party from removing the dog from the county or transferring ownership. I said, do it. We filed for a temporary order that same week. Alyssa reacted like I'd declared war. She blew up my phone with messages. You're really doing this. You're disgusting. You're using the system to punish me. Penny loves me too. I didn't respond. I let my lawyer handle communication. Every message I didn't answer was a message Alyssa couldn't twist into a fight. Meanwhile, I did the other thing my lawyer advised. I built a clean timeline. Not a dramatic story, just facts. Adoption date, microchip registration date, vet visits and who attended, training classes and payments, daily routine responsibilities. I included photos, not for sentiment, but for proof. Pictures from training classes where I'm holding the leash, screenshots of appointment confirmations in my email, messages where Alyssa admitted she couldn't handle walks or vet visits. It wasn't revenge, it was documentation. 2 weeks later, we had a hearing for the temporary order. It wasn't a big courtroom scene. It was a small room with a judge who looked tired and focused. Alyssa was there with her lawyer. She looked polished. She wore a fitted blazer. She had her hair done. She looked like she'd walked in ready to win. I wore a plain button-down and carried a folder, not because I wanted to look humble, because I didn't care about performance. I cared about outcome. The judge asked our lawyers for a summary. Alyssa's lawyer argued that Penny was a marital asset, adopted during the marriage, and both parties had an emotional bond. He said shared custody was fair and common. My lawyer responded calmly. Penny was adopted during marriage, yes, but primary caretaking and all registrations were in my name, and Penny's well-being required stability. He presented the microchip registration, vet payment history, and evidence that Alyssa had unilaterally removed the dog without agreement. The judge looked at Alyssa and asked, "Did you take the dog without telling him?" Alyssa said, "I didn't think I needed to. She's mine too." The judge asked, "Is the microchip registered to you?" Alyssa hesitated. I don't know." My lawyer handed over the document. The judge nodded once, like this was the first clear fact in a room full of feelings. Then the judge asked Alyssa, "Who takes the dog to the vet?" Alyssa said, "We both do." My lawyer didn't jump in, he let her answer. Then he handed the judge the appointment history, my name, my credit card, my email address, consistent. The judge asked Alyssa, "Do you have the dog's vaccination records?" Alyssa looked at her lawyer, "No." The judge turned to me, "Do you?" I slid the folder forward. And in that moment, I felt something settle. Not victory, just clarity. The judge ruled a temporary order. Penny would remain with me until final settlement. Alyssa would have scheduled visitation, short, supervised by agreement in a neutral public place, until the divorce was finalized. Alyssa's face went tight, like someone had pulled a thread too hard. Outside the building, she cornered me. She said, "You're heartless." I looked at her, "I'm consistent." She scoffed, "She's my dog." I answered, "Then why didn't you do the work?" Alyssa's eyes flashed. I did love her. I said, "Loving her doesn't mean moving her around to punish me." Then I walked away. Over the next month, Alyssa tried to push the visitation schedule. She'd show up late, then blame me. She'd ask for just one overnight, then act offended when I said no. She'd send emotional texts about how she cried when she missed Penny. I didn't respond. I kept everything through the lawyer. I kept everything in writing. Penny adjusted to the new routine faster than I expected. Once Alyssa wasn't in our home anymore, the apartment felt calmer. Penny stopped pacing at night. She ate normally. She slept on her bed without startling at sounds. That alone told me I was doing the right thing. Then Alyssa made one last move. She requested in settlement negotiations that she get Penny for half the year. She framed it like a compromise. Daniel gets her from January to June. I get her from July to December. My lawyer read that and sighed. He said she's not negotiating, she's trying to keep access to you. I didn't want to believe that, but then I noticed something. Alyssa wasn't asking for Penny's supplies, she wasn't asking for vet costs, she wasn't asking for the responsibility. She wanted time. Time that forced contact. Time that forced coordination. Time that kept my life tied to hers. So I made a decision. I told my lawyer, offer her more in the settlement financially, but I want Penny permanently. My lawyer raised an eyebrow. Are you sure? I said, yes, I can earn money back. I can't undo a dog's stress, and I can't live with her using Penny as a lever. We adjusted our proposal. Alyssa could keep the newer car. Alyssa could take a larger portion of the furniture. Alyssa could take a bit more from the savings. But Penny would remain with me, fully, and Alyssa would have no claim to shared custody. If she wanted visits, they would be at my discretion, not an obligation. When Alyssa saw the offer, she exploded. She called me from a new number because I'd blocked her main one. She said, "You're bribing me with money so you can steal my dog." I answered calmly, "I'm offering you a fair settlement. I'm not negotiating Penny's stability." Alyssa hissed, "I will take you to court." I said, "We're already in the process. You can do what you think is best." She said, "You're so smug." I said, "I'm not smug, I'm done." Then I hung up and blocked the new number 2. 2 weeks later, we went into mediation for the final settlement. It was a conference room with stale coffee and fluorescent lighting. Alyssa sat across from me with her lawyer. She didn't look at me. She looked at her phone. She looked at the wall. Anything but me. The mediator went through the standard stuff: apartment, cars, accounts, furniture, retirement contributions. Then we got to Penny. Alyssa finally looked up, eyes sharp. She said, "I want shared custody. I'm not letting him take her away from me." The mediator asked, "Why is this important to you?" Alyssa paused, and for a second I thought she might actually say something honest. Instead, she said, "Because she's mine." The mediator looked at the documents. The microchip and registration are in Daniel's name. The vet payments and primary care also appear to be Daniel's. Would you be open to a visitation arrangement? Alyssa shook her head. Number shared custody. My lawyer spoke calmly. The court already issued a temporary order keeping Penny with Daniel because of stability concerns. We believe that order would likely become final if we return to court. Daniel is offering more favorable terms on property division to resolve this without further litigation. Alyssa's lawyer leaned in and whispered something to her. Alyssa's jaw tightened. And then something happened that I didn't expect. Alyssa said quietly but clearly, "Fine, he can have the dog." She said it like she was tossing a used sweater. Then she added in the same breath, "But I want the dining set." I stared at her. Not because of the dining set, because of how quickly Penny stopped mattering the moment the numbers moved. That was the last piece of the puzzle. Penny wasn't the center of Alyssa's heart. Penny was a bargaining chip. And once the bargaining wasn't working, Penny became disposable. I didn't say anything in the room. I just nodded once and let the mediator write it down. Final settlement, Penny remained with me, full ownership, no shared custody. Alyssa relinquished any claim. When it was signed, I felt something I didn't expect. Please. Not triumph, not joy, just the kind of quiet relief you feel when a door finally clicks shut. After mediation, Alyssa walked out without saying goodbye. She didn't ask about Penny. She didn't ask if Penny was okay. She didn't ask to see her one last time. She just left. I went home, took Penny for a long walk, and watched her sniff every patch of grass like she had all the time in the world. She looked lighter, like she could feel that her life wasn't going to be yanked back and forth anymore. And I realized something about breakups that people don't talk about enough. Sometimes a person doesn't want the thing. They want what the thing gives them. Alyssa didn't want Penny's routine. She didn't want Penny's vet bills. She didn't want the responsibility. She wanted a connection to me. A string she could pull. A reason to call. A way to feel like she hadn't fully lost. But that's not love, that's control. And the system doesn't care how emotional someone gets when the paperwork says otherwise. So if there's one lesson in this story, it's this. If your partner treats your pet like a bargaining chip, they'll treat you the same way when life gets hard. Penny is asleep at my feet as I tell this. She's older now. Her muzzle is getting a little gray. She still brings her toy to the door when someone knocks. She still leans her whole body into my legs like she's anchoring herself. And every time she does it, I'm grateful I stayed calm. I'm grateful I stayed organized. Because in the end, I didn't win by yelling. I won by being the person who actually showed up. Let me know in the comments, do you think shared custody of pets after a breakup is fair, or do you think it just keeps people emotionally tied together in the worst way?